So I told you guys a couple days ago, a few days ago now, that I was bouncing ideas around for a new sort of series. And by series, I mean series of videos that will differentiate in some sort of way from my Let's Plays. In fact, they'll differentiate substantially, but they'll be based on the same concept, just a different manner of execution. If you followed any of that, you will have no idea what I'm talking about because I still haven't told you. So basically, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you another story. It's story time. The pretty much not every day, but every other day, I'd say at least, I get questions in comments, in private messages, in well, those are the only two ways you can communicate with me on YouTube. So yeah, comments or private messages, asking me essentially about games or stories or philosophy, but they are done so in and there's some of them are very deep questions and very fascinating about the overall lore of games, of stories, and I love talking about this sort of things. I love sort of answering them and kind of giving you my spin on them. But the problem is then it's only I get the same questions frequently. It's not necessarily the same exact question, but it's some sort of variation of that question, some sort of differentiation, some sort of somewhere in the same location. The wording or the subject may be slightly different, but the core concepts of the questions are the same thing. And I think I'd love to have some way of answering this to the masses, some way of getting out, some way I could control all of this. Because I get a lot of them, and it can be a pill to. I like to give well thought out answers to questions that I receive, and it's hard to just type up individual messages to each one of you, because then if someone else asks me the same thing, oh, I've already answered that, but I've already answered it to them, and then I have to do it to you, and then to you, and then to you, and then to you. And it gets to be it's a bit of a redundancy, and essentially having to do it over, and especially on something that I love talking about, something that I find very fascinating. So, what I figured I'd do is start up a little series where I answer questions specifically about the lore of games or stories or real-world events, whichever you may prefer. I'd like to focus it primarily on gaming, on games or stories, or it doesn't have to be necessarily restricted to one game. When I say this, I have a couple of ideas about how to structure it. Like, say I get a question about Knights of the Old Republic, being one of my more popular Let's Play series, and I get a question about what do you think with regards to so-and-so. Well, I figured I get quite a few questions about those sort of things, so why not make a series about it? Why not take episodes that I'd release maybe once a month, give the questions time to accumulate so that I could really that way I have time to have the questions accumulate, I can give well thought out responses to them, and then I can formulate sort of like a mini documentary to go, because I do love video editing, I do love making them. The problem is finding subject material to do it with. And I love making documentaries. They wouldn't be like full-blown, as professional as I could achieve. Certainly they'd probably be about, I don't know, I don't know how long they'd be, it depends on what I got. But I would love to do something along those lines, something to that extent. Hold on. Oh, never mind. I thought someone was knocking at the door. They weren't. I'm just getting paranoid. But the idea here that I would love, what I'd love to do, essentially, is have the opportunity to sort of put my video editing skills to the test, but also answer all of your questions. So what I want to know from you, this is why I said it would depend heavily upon your input, because if you don't ask any questions, this series doesn't exist. So, I'd like to leave that up to you. Is this something you would like me to attempt? I mean, if enough people say, yeah, this would be interesting, I'd like to see this, then I would consider making a pilot documentary, or a pilot. I don't really want to call them documentaries, because they're not really, they'd be along that style, but it's not really full-blown to that extent. It would be a montage, essentially it would be a montage of clips from the series I was talking about, on top of whatever I would answer all your questions like I'm doing now, just sitting here in front of a voice recording software. And then I would put footage up to correspond with the appropriate clip. Or I may, or some series, and I'm just bouncing ideas around here. This is just this is a draft, essentially. This is a draft of what could potentially be. I don't even know if you guys are interested in this sort of thing. Maybe you just like me to answer things on an individual basis, but I think this would be a good way to really sort of give you my take on the lore of various franchises and sagas and so on, and do so in a way that would be entertaining to you, and give you something different to watch from the daily Let's Play video I upload, or the occasional channel update. I mean, because I do love making videos, and I do love putting my creativity to the test, and this would be a fun opportunity for me to sort of expand and give you guys a little more insight into how my mind works, how I consider my approaches to stories, because I do have very interesting means by which I do so. I mean, if you knew what went on in my head 24/7, you'd probably think, oh my god, how is he not in an asylum? But anyway, so I'd like to know from you the following. Would you like me to do some sort of series like this? Would you like me to consider it and formulate some ideas for it? And if so, what subject material would you like me to do it on? What sort of sagas would you like me to do it on? And if that's the case, and if I get enough people saying in the affirmative yes, I will put up another video. And in that video I will say, alright, it's a go, now, and I'm going to do it on insert name of series here. Or it may just be a specific installment from that series, or because I would like to revisit certain topics, and I sincerely doubt I will cover the entire lore of a single franchise in one session, so if we get further questions on that one, I may go back and do another one on that, and again and again and again. There's no sky's the limit. I mean, it's our series. It's not just my series, it's our series. This is something that we would all create. This is your questions and my responses, and the two of them together culminate. You can't have one without the other. Well, you can have a question without an answer, but you can't have an answer without a question. That's quite profound, that. I'm a scholar. Well, I am a scholar. What am I talking about? That was elitist. Anyway, I'm just bouncing ideas around here. Let me know what you think, and we'll see where we go from here. I don't need any suggestions on sagas or franchises or anything I don't need any questions yet. No questions. No questions or material yet. Just an affirmative yes or no, or you don't have to just say yes or no. You can say that sounds interesting, or no, don't do that. Are you crazy? Just tell me if this is something you'd be interested in, if something you'd feel like contributing to, and if so, we'll see where we go with it. So, let me know what you think.